Welcome, Night Owls, to the Book Club After Dark podcast, an inviting moonlit podcast. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm Michelle. We break down fantasy, romantasy, and thriller novels.
All things enchanting, intriguing, suspenseful, and maybe a little spicy, especially tonight.
Yes, tonight. Each episode features intimate discussions on captivating stories, character breakdowns, fan theories, and more. And this is your content warning. This podcast contains mature themes and discussions that may not be suitable for all audiences. Episodes include explicit language and descriptions of mature romance, as well as depictions of violence and other intense subject matter. This podcast is rated R for mature audiences only. Listener discretion is advised.
And going forward from here, there will be lots of spoilers for the Fae and Alchemy series. Book 1, of course, Quicksilver by Callie Hart. So consider this your spoiler warning.
Let's get cozy because the best stories are told after dark.
So tonight's drink of the episode is called Some Like It Spicy, because sometimes we like our drink spicy too. We've got a spicy episode tonight, and I thought with Cinco de Mayo on its way, we have an opportunity to make a good spicy marg. That's exactly what I did. I made a good spicy marg, and it's delicious. It has a little bit of jalapeno, lime, a little bit of orange juice even. There's a way you can do this with a mocktail, and when I was pregnant with my son, this brand Ritual came out, and their tequila is very strong and is zero proof. There's no actual tequila at all. It's like an agave zero proof. But anyway, you can make it with that. You can make it with tequila. You can make it with, there's a couple other mocktail versions that you can make of this, but I'm so happy that there are so many different mocktail versions out there now that exist today. So you don't have to necessarily put this with tequila. Of course, this one does have tequila in it. And the one I'm going to make on the video does as well, but there are tons of options out there. Yeah, so cheers. I have a little bit of, it's like tahini and like a sea salt on the side here.
Oh, I love tahini.
And yeah, so yeah, here we go.
Cheers.
The citrus of the lime and the orange juice, while it still has that bite of the spiciness, really puts it nicely together. It blends really nicely. I can't really taste that overwhelming tequila flavor. It's just that little bit of bite that it has there, but it's very, very good. I would definitely drink this or order this out. It's a great drink. And so happy to Cinco de Mayo also to all those folks listening. Actually, unrelated, quick question. We had a poll at work that was like, if you could only celebrate one holiday of these 3 holidays. I'm going to say this for the quick Q&A. I've decided. We're saving it for the Q&A.
Got it.
All right. So let's immerse ourselves back into Perelia. In this episode, we're going to be exploring a Kingfisher point of view chapter, which we kind of glazed over a little bit last episode, and chapters 21 through 25 of Quicksilver by Callie Hart. So whether you're reading along with us or just here for the book talk, we are always glad that you're here.
This POV chapter is titled The Fox, the Boots, and the Dress. And this is when Kingfisher and Saris have their first dinner, or right before they have their first dinner. It goes into the detail of, one, him getting Carrion's boots, that conversation of why he needs to take a bath, and then how he got the dresses for Saris. So Kingfisher first starts off is saying Saris is a plague, essentially, because she's just around and she is an inconvenience, even though he needs her. But he views her as this massive inconvenience because she is stirring up all these feelings inside him that makes everything so complicated. Right. Well, he just went through 110 years of torture, and now we actually get a glimpse of, the journals that his mom wrote and how his mom prophesied that he was going to have this mate. And we know later on in the book, he talks about it more, but this is where we first get introduced to it in his POV, which comes out afterwards. But he's conflicted. He's like, I know I'm supposed to have a mate. She's a human, though. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And that's not what she prophesied. And she's human. She's a pain in the ass, but she's really important. So, a lot of conflicting feelings here. As he's going through college, he's having a lot of emotions, too, because this is his first time back home. And he's recalling his home used to be a lot like his mother. He's the smell of jasmine, and his mother was everywhere. And he comments that it's like a ghost of her because there's these whispers that her presence was once here, but that was so long ago. And it's really heartbreaking seeing how right underneath his really asshole exterior, he has all these really raw emotions that's constantly plaguing him. It really adds that complexity to it, even though this chapter doesn't really add a lot of content in terms of moving the plot. It gives you a little bit more into how he feels and understands the world, which is also nice when we have a brooding lord.
Yeah. And I think it also gives Kingfisher some much needed kind of heart and balance to especially the times when we thought he didn't have any humanity left. We see here that he definitely did have humanity and definitely felt a certain way about Sarah. It's enough to leave her a dress to wear to dinner. And more importantly, that there's, regardless of how much time has passed, there's still this aching for his mom and what has happened here. And he doesn't know as a character at this point that Bellicon had slit his mother's throat. He thinks that she died in childbirth of Everlane. And it's a bonus chapter that has Ceres in it, and it's part of the overarching Quicksilver book. Whereas the Gates Part 1 and 2 are prequels and have nothing to do, I mean, they have factors, in understanding the whole squad, but
Right.
they are not part of the Quicksilver story. He has this opportunity actually to see Ceres undress in the bathroom, and he is better than that, and he turns away. It was actually a really cute moment for Kingfisher. And Kingfisher turns away and he's like, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to just like watch her undress, although I could. I'm not doing any of that. But he does comment like how thin she is. And even if his mom was wrong, he still wants her to gain weight and he wants to keep her safe. And he still doesn't know fully. He feels like that's his mate, but he was still looking for a fae mate this whole time because that's what his mother predicted. And he's trusting this prediction of hers. But she like fits the picture, except for the ears, like perfectly. So he has his mission to get through dinner and just continue to make her hate him. He doesn't hate her. He wants to, but he doesn't. And it's very evident here in this chapter that is not the case.
What I did love about this chapter is he actually hates Carrion. Like, that's not a facade that he puts out. He pretends to hate Ceres, but he actually hates him. And it goes through like him getting the boots and being nice. These are like his father's boots. So they're actually important. They're not some like random strangers on the streets. And the conversation between him and Carrion was hilarious because Carrion's like, there you are, my captor, or not, like, what's going on here? And Carrion, like, you can tell he cares for Ceres because he's also checking, like, okay, you say I'm free to walk, is she free to walk too? And Kingfisher like kind of explains like she's free to roam these halls, but she has an oath, she has a job to do. And then the whole like, you need to take a bath. And then Kingfisher sees Carrion like eyeing Mela, the water sprite, and he just is disgusted by him. He's like, he got a chance with the human and that wasn't enough for him. Like, how he's just such a disgusting person. So I really love that, like, Ceres is a facade. He hates Carrion. And it's very clear here.
There is one part of it that I wanted to know about this point of view chapter that talks about how he has the gift of illusions from his father. I think this plays into what you talked about before, where we noticed that Kingfisher's father, we've never seen a body. We don't have a clear distinction of, other than the fact that he was sent away to Zilvarin, nothing else. But we do know now with this point of view chapter, which is a nice little gift wrapped in a bow, that his father has the gift of illusions the same as Kingfisher does. So if he's able to hide himself in places, to me, this only furthers the fact that he is definitely still alive in Zilvarin.
Do we think we've seen him in Zilvarin? Like, could he be Elroy? Do we think?
I'm not discounting that could have merit and that we could have seen this before. I don't know that I think it's super likely.
Okay.
I don't know that there's enough there to support that.
It could be the crazy market guy who always talks about like there's magic and everything, and that could be
who rips everybody off.
Yeah, but he's oath-bound, so he can't lie, but technically he can spin truths. I'm assuming he's oath-bound. We don't exactly know, but if Kingfisher's oath-bound, and he talks about like, the love of his dad and everything, I would assume he's oath-bound.
Banter and Bookmarks podcast, they had reached out to us, and they had mentioned, hey, we thought it might be Elroy. Is it possible? I'm like, anything's possible, but I don't know if I personally was leaning towards that.
Okay.
Maybe it could be Elroy if he has this illusion ability. He can hide the fact that he's aiding a rebellion and things like that. I'm not sure that I see it. I personally think we could have been introduced to him, but I don't know that it was Elroy. And I'll be honest, I kind of hope it's not.
Right.
That's just
because he had a thing for her mom, so that would make things a little bit awkward.
It would just be too much. And I think it's too easy, to be honest with you, from a writing standpoint. I don't know. I don't necessarily see that could, I'm not ruling it out. I hope that that's not the case.
Crazy market guy.
What are your thoughts? Okay.
I actually want it to be him. I was just thinking about, I'm like, that would be hilarious. Not that it needs to be funny, but just to add like
If
the
it's going to
spin
be
to it.
anyone, I would think it would be, yeah, if it's going to be
Because
anyone,
if
I
it's
think it
the
would be somebody like
illusion,
very barely nodded to.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So he can like put on this like weird facade of who he is. But I did love the complexity of the magic in this series is like, I know there are a lot of tropes from other series that are kind of pulled from, but the complexity of the magic is definitely unique here. I like how there's the illusions and then there's the shadows and how they can both combine into one person, and it really has like distinct magic and the powers and where those come from. But I think she opens it up to it literally can be anyone, and good luck guessing. But I
Yeah.
think we'll see him in book 2. I
This
definitely do.
amazing thing of him being able to create a bathroom for Saris, like on a dime with this gift of illusions. I just don't see Elroy doing anything like that ever so far, unless the forge itself is an illusion. Because, like, how would you have a forge in the third? I don't know. It's a tough sell for me.
Okay,
We'll have
that's
to
fair.
see.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on it either. But yeah, we'll definitely have to see. I think we will see in book 2 because there's too many references, and especially if the POV chapter mentions again that Zovarin, like he is in Zovarin, or he was lost in Zovarin. You know, I think we're
Right?
definitely going to see him in Brimstone.
Yeah. And I want to take a note too to thank Banter and Bookmarks podcast, of course, because we always love hearing from anyone who has theories and things like that. So thank you, ladies, so much for reaching out and send us all the things. Like, we want to know. We want to talk
All
about
the
them.
things.
We're going to bring them up. We want to know all the things that you think could be a thing, might not be a thing. Are we crazy that we think something is a thing? It's possible. Chapter 21, Icebreaker. And we're starting off here where it's night has fallen completely. The sky is pitch black, and warriors are now rushing towards the bank of the Darn with sledgehammers and axes to like break up the ice. So if we remember before the end of chapter 20, Saris had just shattered this sword, and it kind of ends on a cliffhanger. Kingfisher says she's mine for the first time. And we have the end of the chapter where someone rushes into the tent, gigantic area, which is not a tent at all, but on the outside looks like a tent, screaming that they need to go, like they need icebreakers.
Do we like the she's mine trope? Like that's the possession trope. Is that something that you particularly like in these books or in books in general?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends.
What about here?
I liked it here because these are warriors that like are about to turn on her because she just like shattered a god sword. So he's saying to them in his role, right, that no one's to touch her because of this. I didn't view it as, and while it is a romantic thing, it's also like a possession of like no one's gonna fuck with her. Like, I'll deal with
Right, she's our only hope
is.
of maybe changing the tides of war, which we don't know. It's
no big deal.
Dire yet until Ren in the later chapters freaks out on Danya because Danya's just like bitching about the sword in chapter 25. So, which fair, you know, that's a family heirloom and everything. But I like the mine because it just adds a little bit of the gruff, like, you know, distance from reality. Because if my husband were to say that, like, you're mine, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I am not, first of all.
I think I would just laugh. I would literally laugh if he was ever like, she's mine to like somebody else randomly. I would just be like, do you know what I mean? Like in the street at the grocery store, like what if I don't know what situation would warrant such a thing. Maybe I don't read enough contemporary romance. My contemporary romance readers can probably riddle me this, but I would probably laugh.
I'm just picturing
honestly.
it. Yeah, no, I can see that.
Response would probably be me just laughing. And it would just literally steal all the angry masculinity, I guess, out of the room.
Be gone. Poof.
So, yeah. So, Saris tells Carrion, now that we're getting back to this, the icebreaker, right? Saris tells Carrion they should get out of the way. And he's like, I'm not going to hide in this tent. So go Carrion. Well, get him. He's like, I'm not hiding in this tent. It's like, I'm not going to be able to fight them, but I can break some ice. I could do something here. Chaos. Right? Yeah. Huge warriors, right? These huge fae are standing on the side of the edge of the river. They're heaving these giant sledgehammers. And the way that I went to Frozen, the first one, where you have that opening scene with the song and the guy, yes, you know the song.
Yep,
like you don't know. I've only seen that movie 8,000 times.
A billion. Yep, yeah.
I'm actually trying to think of the beginning of the song. I'm trying to think of how it goes. I've only seen it a
I'm
thousand
literally
times
picturing
plus.
it's playing
So
in my head.
I know, and I have no words for the song at all.
Nope.
I can see it. I can see the characters hitting the ice, and like my brain cannot
It's just
recall it on a
gruff
dime like that.
Nordic men voices that's chanting, which is what is happening here. I'm assuming they're probably grunting and chanting because there's a drum. So they're like literally in time doing it to get the greatest effect. Because if they're having an impact at the same time, there's a greater of a chance that the ice is going to crack. So it's not just for like dramatic effect. Although this is going to look pretty badass in the series. I'm very excited for this one because you have the Darn. So at this area, it's frozen solid. And then on the other side, you have the vampires that are just there, and the ice is beginning to spider web and crack, and the vampires are starting to come on the first wave. Jets of fire tear across the river once they're in range, but the fire didn't stop them because they're soulless. They don't care. They just have this need to feed, and they're just doing whatever Malcolm is telling them to do. And as soon as the ice breaks, a wave of black smoke rolls over them and like just shoves them in. So this is really cool. I'm so excited for this. For the movie. There's so many dramatic scenes that are gonna look so cool. So then the horde starts coming because Malcolm just does this to like check. As like don't forget I'm
To see
here.
if Kingfisher's
And I'm
yeah, but
more
he's checking to see
powerful
if
than you.
Kingfisher's there. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's also trying to check because he knows that the black smoke pushing everybody in is Kingfisher. That's a Kingfisher power move. So Kingfisher hasn't been there for how long? And obviously Malcolm.
Which
Now,
Malcolm
now thinking
knows.
about this, of course, now Malcolm knows he's escaped because he escaped his own labyrinth. But more importantly,
Mhm.
he also knows that he probably saw his brother, who is Belicon, and I'm sure Belicon told him, "Oh, Kingfisher's going back to college. Just so you know, heads up." So Malcolm seemingly just showing up is, I don't think, a coincidence here at all. I think he knew Kingfisher was back, and now he's just seeing. And yeah, he's like, it's a couple weeks since they last spoke, and that he misses him. And it's like, oh, the heebie-jeebies, so gross.
And then the way Malcolm looks. Okay, so I pictured Draco Malfoy's dad because he's tall and slender.
Lucius.
Yes,
Okay.
because he's wearing all black and he has
Can
straight
we do
white
one
hair.
episode without a Harry Potter reference?
No,
Like, just
we
one?
cannot. We cannot.
We should
And
rename ourselves.
the Potter podcast.
Honestly.
And he was almost handsome, so you can tell that he was like, handsome at one point, but there's evil there, so why? And then his eyes were blood red. So that would be the only difference between him and Lucius. But I was picturing him the whole time. Kane and everything, actually.
What's really disturbing to me about Malcolm now in a second read is that it's alluded to several times in the Labyrinth that there was some kind of sexual trauma to Kingfisher due to Malcolm, and it's deeply disturbing.
Right.
It's not on page. It's only like kind of semi hinted at. Did you pick up on that as well?
I did. And, they're vampires. There's references to like biting being a sexual thing, and it's very taboo.
Yeah.
And, since Malcolm is a full on vampire fae purse thing, I would
Right, he's
assume that
turned.
he would use that as a torture method. So, yeah.
Yeah. Kingfisher's not all right.
No.
Our boy is not okay.
It's not just
He's
the
had-
Quicksilver talking nonsense in his ears all the time or in his
No,
eye.
It is not.
Yeah. He came and talk it out. Like, and that's the biggest thing. Like, if anyone experiences some sort of trauma, going to therapy and talking it out is one way to overcome it. And he can't even, he physically cannot because he's oath bound. And Malcolm twisted everything to be some oath that he can't talk about it. And that's like a big torture because he can't tell Archer. And Archer is literally like, raised him. He can't tell Ren, who's his brother, or Lorith, which I love Lorith. And like he can't tell
favorites.
anyone. So it's
You
really
can't tell
heartbreaking.
Sarah, even when she tries to ask later, later in the
Right.
book, you can't tell her. And this is why this book for me, while yes, is a romantasy, there's definitely horror elements to this story. And I think it really fits our romantasy / thriller vibe because I think that this book has a lot of that and those elements as well. It's not an overly happy tale by any stretch
No.
of the
Even the
meaning.
ending where everything is kind of it's not happy. It just continues on, I would say.
Yeah,
Like, the
we have
ending
another
isn't happy at all
cliffhanger
either.
to figure out.
Right.
No, now we have another problem that we have to figure out how we're going to overcome in Brimstone.
Right.
Malcolm let the Fae believe that they were working together. So, of course, Fisher can't explain the truth, which we just talked about repeatedly. And by him saying to the masses, right, across the Darn, hey, I've missed you or whatever, it alludes and it makes this assumption that Fisher's been gone this whole time working with Malcolm. What has he been doing working with them? Where is he working with our enemy that we've been fighting this whole time? Because from their perspective, they've been holding the line for 110 years, waiting for Kingfisher to come back, only to hear Malcolm, after all this time, say, oh, I've missed you and I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. And it's like his army's trying to figure out what the hell does this mean? And Kingfisher can't say. He can't talk about it at all. The whole thing is so fucked up, honestly. And that leads us to chapter 22. The
Itch. Fisher found Saris half an hour later. So we're still in the camp. And she's sitting in front of a fire outside the war room, drinking hot cider. And Fisher calls to Ren and asks if he has the annoying one, which I love. We know that he just hates Carrion. And then gives Saris a hand to get up, and he opens a shadow gate for him and Saris and tells Ren that they'll be back in the morning. And they appear in Fisher's bedroom. Her head is whirling at his smell, which is always wild mint and pine needles, so like the forest and like cool scents. And he's like untying her.
How do you feel about that as a trope? Like, he smelled
I
of
don't
snow
know.
and the winter winds.
See, it just sounds like a Bath and Body Works candle, and I always have issues with how the naming goes. It's like one of the scents, like 1,000 wishes. What does that smell like? Do we like have people wish 1,000 things and bottle up with that? Okay, cool. I acknowledge what they're trying to do. They smell kind of like Christmas with an air freshener on top. Got it. So
that's
Fisher,
fair. That's a lot to take in.
Right. So they're having this intimate moment. This is where we're getting a little bit more intimate. And he's like untying her cloak and he's murmuring into her hair. So he's like standing behind her and like towering over her, and she has her back to him, and he murmurs into her hair, "You never wore the dresses I put out for you." And she's like, "I don't want to talk about it." He's like, "Let's talk about food then." He tells her never to share food with Carrie again, because this is a very intimate thing. He's like, "Well, you can share with other people, but don't fucking do it with Carrion, please." And he calls him a prick. And it's just, he just hates him so much because they had that intimate moment together back in the third, and he can't stand that he got a piece of her. And she's like, "I don't want to talk about Carrion." And
so
she felt right. And she felt the back of her neck prickle. We know, like, back of the neck prickling. Like, what did you think? Did you think this was more of she was feeling emotions here, or she was feeling the mating bond, or what do you think that the specific back of her neck prickling? Because sometimes when authors say this means something else.
Yeah, I was getting the mating bond thing.
Okay.
Personally. Okay. The first read, you don't pick up on that as much. You kind of just feel like, she's just feeling into him or whatever. But now as a second read, where you know that they're mated, I do wonder if that's more the mating bond for sure. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. That was likely the mating bond, because she doesn't know it exists. He does. And he knows that she's likely his mate. But he has that information. She doesn't, so she doesn't really know what that experience would feel like anyways. So I think that's what was happening here. And in the last episode, when we talked about how she felt something in her heart like shift, that was the mating bond as well. And it causes like physical reactions to them. But she ultimately here doesn't want to talk about like any of that stuff. She wants to talk about the riverbank and the feeders that could have made it across. And he's just like, yeah, this is kind of war. People get hurt. People die. They weren't going to make it across. They never make it across. And she's just seeing the reality of the war here. And it's kind of throwing her off. Like, it's shocking her. And he's like, this has been life for a very, very long time. And this is just kind of a norm for us that we live with. And we have to survive.
He fully turns him to look him dead in the face and is mentally worried about him, but she doesn't want to admit that. So instead, she said she's afraid that if he dies, she's not going to be able to go home, because the way that she can go home through the Quicksilver is through him. And so he's the only one who has a relic. So how else would he get home? So instead of saying the truth of I'd be worried if you died. Yeah, she doesn't say that.
Because what's confronting our feelings? We don't do that. No one does that
the
here.
Miscommunication trope. So Saris comments that his friends are going to tear him apart in the morning because of these implications that Malcolm just made, that supposedly he's working with him. He reassures her to breathe and tries to calm her down. He confirms that the feeders made it halfway, which is basically as far as they always make it. And Malcolm just every once in a while sends out a wave just to remind them that he's there. And Fae tend to not hold grudges because they have such long lives. So he's not super concerned about what happened, and he'll talk to whoever he needs to.
Which Danya proves him wrong, because Danya holds a fucking
Immediately.
grudge.
She does. So there's talk about an understanding of who Malcolm is and that he's a high Fae vampire, which is he's the very first that existed of this. They were cursed thousands of years ago, and some Fae turned into something like Malcolm. There was a cure found. Fisher's great-grandfather and Yvellian Fae took it because they were horrified at the monsters that they were becoming. However, there were others who liked it and liked the promise of power and immortality, hence Malcolm. Fae already live a really long time, but they do age and eventually they do die. But Malcolm and others did not want to age. Malcolm is their king, and he's able to turn someone, and they remain themselves if he turns them. He also has princes who turn people, and they can lose their soul. There's a possibility that they can turn them, but most of these princes do not. It's not successful. The majority of Malcolm's horde were once humans, and they were more vulnerable to this than before. So there's some of these people are the creatures that are Fae, and some are human that make up this horde.
I like how
which
we're
is
getting
interesting,
this
too.
right. I like how we're getting this backstory now, because this information is really important in the ending chapters, and how
Absolutely.
Sarah's turns, and how like that's a possibility, and like keeping herself and her soul and all of that. So we're getting all that information now, and it's foreshadowing ultimately. So I
Yes,
just like how we're
massive.
not learning as it's happening, but we learned in the past, and we can piece those things together.
Yep. And I have a question for you about that later. We'll ask it later what your
Okay.
thoughts are on some things I read online. We'll get back to that. So Saris realizes that he is oathbound because he cannot tell her where he was for the last 100 years. And she now knows what an oathbound is because she herself is tangled up in one.
Right.
So Fisher just says it's not her business to know, and Saris counters that it is her business and that he's using this as a defense mechanism to keep people away. He doesn't actually hate her as much as he pretends to, and that she knows that he wants her. And he says that he can want to kill her and still hate her. So I am trying to get us not banned off of the YouTube platform. So she says that there's something between them, and he deflects, of course. And he keeps saying sarcasm, and they have this banter going back and forth, of course, because they always do. And she says this comment, not really realizing what she's saying, and that he wants to bite her. And he almost did because he scratched her with his tooth. And he's like, "You're wrong." And she's like, "Oh, we'll prove it then." And then she finally gives in and literally is just like, "Okay, like, are we doing this or what? Because I'm loving you too. Are we banging or what? Are we doing it?" And why is it always me that why am I always the one that happens to be the one that's like describing these scenes? I'm like
because you're the apartment one bedroom. That is your
I am
favorite.
the in with one bed.
In with
trope.
one bed. Okay, in with one bed. So they ultimately kiss, and they're very intent, very passionate, like last breath type of passionate as they're going through. Fisher loves to talk dirty. I'm not going to say exactly what he says, but he does love to talk dirty. You can read it yourself. You can actually listen to it in the audiobook, because
10 out of 10.
Yes, 10 out of 10. 100 out of 1,000. Or 1,000 out of 100. Yes. Math, my degree wasn't in math. They undress and everything, and Fisher's like, she comments that he's like perfect in every sort of way, even his imperfections. And I did like how Callie Hart, because some of these romantic-y, spicy scenes are very unrealistic. And I did like how he was not unrealistic, even though he's like a large fae. It wasn't like described of, it was a whole.
No, he's got like a whole bunch of scars all over him, and
no, I meant like with his endowment.
He's imperfect looking.
No, I was talking about like him, because I mean a lot of times it's so unrealistic.
Yes, I wasn't tracking. Yeah,
okay, I was trying to teeter around that, but I do like Callie Hart's writing and how
I do
it
too.
is fantasy,
Her
but
spicy scenes are
realistic.
She knows what she's doing in the bedroom.
Of course,
she's got her pen ready. It's ready to go. She knows what she's writing.
Right.
Yeah, she's one of the better ones that I've read for spicy scenes for sure.
I agree.
Dare I say I prefer Saris and Kingfisher's spicy scenes over Daddy?
Yes, because Zayden talks too much, and he just talks too much, and it's not like realistic things that any sort of 20 22, 23, 24-year-old would say. Kingfisher's 1,000 to 1,800 years old. He can say whatever the hell he wants.
And he knows what he's doing. Yes, he does.
Yes. So, yeah, I do prefer that because the relationship is a little bit more mature, even though the age difference is drastic.
Just a
But
smidge, tiny bit.
Just a little bit. It's fine. It's fine. It's suspended reality, so it's fine. And
I
so
like
as
that justification. It's suspended reality. Wow.
exactly.
Okay.
And as they are undressing, they, you know, start to fool around. And the way Sarah describes her first orgasm as an awakening, I'm like, girl, what? An awakening? Okay.
Wait till she tells Carrie on.
It was an awakening. It's like, well then, I'm sorry. I would love to see that conversation. That would be hilarious. And then after that,
okay, wait.
Fisher,
so she says awakening because it's her mate. Does that change what you think of that as the first time?
Probably. I would think like having intimate relations with just some random versus having intimate relations with your mate would be something different because she's probably feeling not just like her body physically reacting, but her soul is reacting. So I would assume that's a whole like outer body experience, which she does describe as that, like literally an out of body experience. Good for you, girl. You've been through hell, so you deserve that awakening.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
And then I love this line just because I kind of laughed at it. But, you know, before the main show, Fisher says, hold on tight. I hope you're not afraid of the dark. I know it's supposed to be sexy. Lupo's like, okay. So, yeah.
I'm like looking for this right now as you say this. Hold on. Now I need to like, I don't discount that you're correct. I feel like I might have just overlooked that entirely.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
Hold on. Oh my God. His smile was pure, powerful male satisfaction. Hold on tight, then I hope you're not afraid of the dark.
I'm like, okay. Okay.
I did not catch this on a first read. I have to put myself in Sarah's shoes because a man like that leans over you and says that next to your ear after he's given you the best joy of your life. And then he says that. You're like, I don't think so. I think I'm very much ready to sink into darkness yesterday. So let's do this.
True. I would laugh. I could not. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably laugh. Yeah. But I don't know. He's kind of terrifying. So I don't know. That's a question.
It works for him.
Day.
He's a shadow daddy. So it works for him.
This works.
We understand what that is. So, you know, you can read what happens after that. So our listeners and viewers, you can read that part. What happens when it gets dark in there. So after they finish, they lay there intertwined, his tattoos.
Everybody finishes.
So good for everyone. And it's important to note, like, during all the intimate moments, the tattoos were like moving and shifting. But here they're like still now, which I thought that was interesting. Or we know that like the tattoos actually mean something. They're actually like mating tattoos. And that's what, that's what expanding. Those ones resemble. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he tells her he wants her to stay in this room tonight due to the chaos of the camp and let her relax. And he'll get her in the morning and she'll spend the next day working on the relics in the camp. But tonight she needs to rest. And then he steps into the darkness and vanishes. I'm just like, man, she doesn't even get to cuddle or anything. You're just going to leave her?
That was rude.
Yeah, I was like, I would feel some type of way if I was Sarah, which she did. And then she goes to leave and Archer was just like sitting there like twiddling his thumbs like, I thought you could need a snack. And then Sarah's was like, we were
you obviously worked up an appetite.
Furniture. We were moving
literally
furniture,
says
but then
we
decided that
the way I was like, girl, you were
that.
moving furniture. What?
Oh, that's something.
It doesn't matter what world you're in.
If like your kid's like furniture, it's fine. I was like, and Archer's like,
the weight of the bed as I'm moving it, you know, I had to, just into place and
felt really awakened.
He's like,
that couch. It's like, well, either way, here's some cake and apple juice. And, she's like, all right,
what a delight Archer is.
I love Archer.
Archer, who's 1,800 plus years old or older. I mean,
probably a lot older.
He knows what's going on.
Fisher.
Okay?
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
He knows what's going on here. My goodness. Come on, girl. But she's too proud. She will never admit that. There's no way. And she's also not Fae. So she doesn't have, like, whereas I feel like Kingfisher would be like, oh, yeah, we just did that. You know, it wouldn't even be a thing for him or any other Fae for that matter, because it's just so nonchalant. They'd be like, oh, thanks for the cake and the apple juice. Appreciate it. You know, like it wouldn't even be anything to deny. He just owned that completely.
But because they can smell it, so it's not like you can hide it anyways. Like there's no point
Yes.
in lying. Right.
Oh,
So, and he
Sarah's.
can't lie anyways. So,
No.
because he's an
Yeah.
oath bound. So,
Right.
yep.
Yeah.
But she's not. Oh goodness.
Chapter 23 is titled Ticking Clock, which we'll find out why it's titled that here in a few minutes. So she wakes up in a happy mood
Bet she did.
before seeing her body in the mirror. So a shadow gate appears in the bedroom the next morning. Kingfisher doesn't come through, but Sarah has to enter through it on her own. So she steps through it, and there's Fey warriors bustling around the camp, and Fisher's standing around 10 feet from the shadow gate, leaning against a post. And Fisher walks away quickly. And she's like, the fuck? He just like opened this gate and just like left. So she chased after him and yells at him to get back here. And when she falls in step beside him, she asks him, what's going on with my skin? Because she has a tattoo on her chest. And she's like, what the fuck is this? He responds, it'll probably fade and, just keep moving. And so this for Fisher has to be like the first for sure validation that not only are they mated, but there could be some ancient magic whirling around here that he doesn't even fully comprehend yet. And he might just be like scared shitless of what this could possibly mean and doesn't even know what to do. But of course, he's not going to tell Sarah any of that because we wouldn't have a miscommunication trope if he did. So naturally,
And she's not realizing. She just thinks like the tattoos just leaked onto her. So she's not even realizing like she's technically being like super rude right now, saying like take it back,
right?
Because she's essentially saying like she's rejecting the mating bond. But he knows she doesn't know that. But still, I'm sure that doesn't hurt any less of what he's feeling. He's like, it'll probably go away. It's like, aw.
Yeah, that had to like really hurt too, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And she's like, I definitely didn't ask for a bird to be permanently be inked right above my boob. You need to take it back. And he's like, that's not how it works. You just need to forget it's there or cover it up because it's so upsetting to you. And so here you're kind of like, it's tough because you feel for Kingfisher, especially in a second read. You really feel for him here because he's like clearly excited about it in his own way, but he can't explain to her all of it because he doesn't want to terrify her. Yeah.
Right.
So he takes her to the camp healer so she can take a tonic. And Saris is like, why are you taking me there? I was cleansed when I was 14 years old. It's 70% of the girls in the third ward are cleansed. And it's because they're the poorest, and Madra's health advisors just decide that they shouldn't procreate. So they can't support themselves. So she just cleanses them.
Who even knows if that's like the real reason? Right.
Who knows? Yeah. I think it's more because she wants to limit any kind of Fey blood continuing to thrive, which is more likely. So Fisher is horrified by this. His facial expression and everything that he feels from this is terrifying for him. He just is like, go work in the forge then. And can't even handle himself. Not only does he get rejected about the tattoos, he also gets told that his mate can't have kids in the same fall swoop. And not only can she not have kids, but she was literally like sterilized by Madra of all people. And I think it's just too much for him to try to process at this time. And
I'm sure the Quicksilver's in his head too.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure it just defaults to, I'm just going to be a dick because this has worked for me. So that's what I'm going to do in this situation. And I'm going to walk away because I don't know what else to do with this information right now. I can't handle it. So it takes her 30 minutes to find the forge, which is halfway up this steep, small hillside behind the war camp. There's a fire already going. All the equipment is set out on the workbench. There's only a tiny amount of Quicksilver for her to work with, but she's finally kind of getting back in the groove here. We still have a job to do. We have this forge, and she hikes up the mountain and there, and he's waiting for her at the mouth of the cave. He's happily tending to a fire and reading a book. It's like, what? And it's just so random.
Yeah, but I mean, Fisher makes him random. Like Fisher literally like wakes him up, was like, "Get up, we're going somewhere," and like says, "You sit here and stay." He's like, "What?
What the hell?" And he's just like, "I'm just here." And I wonder if he's like waiting for his moment because we know Carrion knows who he is.
Right.
Like he knows who he is. So I wonder if he's just like, when is going to be the right moment? Well, my grandma told me I was going to have a moment, so it's going to happen. I need to figure out when that moment is. It's just not yet. So he says to Saris, did you know the Yevelian Fae are the youngest of the Fae houses by 1,000 years? There was a dispute between these two brothers, and they splintered off to make their own court. And he's just like spouting these like random facts.
Because he's reading.
She's like, you're blocking She's like, you're blocking the light here. Can you please? Why are you just fine with everything that's here? Like you've just accepted all of this. Supposedly you didn't know Fae existed, and suddenly they're everywhere, and you're just like okay with it. And this is where you find out that
Actually.
he knew about the Fae because his grandmother told him, and he believed all the stories because his grandmother told him that they were true and she was an honest person. And Cerys knows Gracie S. Swift as one of the most known nonsense people she ever encountered. She was an engineer charged with ensuring new buildings in the third were built on stable foundations. But we also know that this was not his grandmother. It was one of the many people that were there to appear to be that way and known him his whole life, but he definitely was way older than the grandmother that Sarah knew at this time.
Right.
So it makes me wonder how many people he has befriended over his time in Sylvarin, and adds validity to how he was able to have such a strong hold and grip on Sylvarin trade and like kind of the underworking of the third and all of this, because he was able to live there for so long, kind of seemingly undetected.
Well, and if the population of the third dies constantly, it's pretty easy to, just always be alive because everyone around you is going to die pretty soon. So he can keep up that facade. The book that he's reading was the book that he knew when he was told his stories from his grandmother. And it's the Fey creatures of the Galarian Mountains. And he knows it from cover to cover because his grandmother knew it from cover to cover. And she would make him like recite things like, you're not getting cake or dessert unless you cite 7 ways to kill a Fey blood warrior. And I really love that. Just, just cramming a bunch of knowledge into him. He's like, you never know when you're going to need this information. And then this is where we get the quote from the beginning of the book. If you,
right.
I believe it's in the Kindle
have the physical
version
copy,
too, right?
It is, but it's not as impactful.
Right. So this is where we get this front quote. I'm holding it up for those watching on YouTube. And it says, never forget, monsters thrive best in the dark. Commit all you read here to memory, prepare for war. So this is from the book that Carrion was reading specifically, which I like that interconnection.
Right. And we know this goes all the way back to more than 1,000 years of information that we're talking about here of history. There's a dire situation if Galarian Fae ever appear. He needed to understand how to kill a Fae warrior before eating dessert. This is also foreshadowing. So we know that Carrion's going to have a bigger piece in this than we realized. And I don't know that I put 2 and 2 together on a first read of how much that would really be. I was just like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense why he's so chill. I kind of just took Cerys's perspective and didn't like go too much further into that. But what we find about Carrion's heritage and what he really is there for is an entirely different situation. Fisher had rudely awoken him from his tent and dragged him up to the spot on the mountain, and he had given a small wooden box with Quicksilver to guard. Cerys asked him to come back with her to the forge. Cerys conducts 3 more experiments, which all fail. So by mid-afternoon, Cerys begins refining the process, and Carrion has gathered lunch from the camp. As they ate, Kingfisher appears looking beat up. She asks him why he insists on tracking down the Quicksilver, and he insists that it's good for her to improve at finding it, meaning the reason she was called up to where Carrion was sitting was the Quicksilver called her up there. So she's trying to find this Quicksilver so she can work to refine it. So Carrion had it and was like guarding it, so she couldn't find it. Now she's able to work because she finally found it, and her and Carrion are hanging out working on it. But there's a moment where Kingfisher asks if Carrion knows anything about refining silver, and he's like, I'm more of a logistics guy. And then he's like, okay, well, you can like leave then and go be useful somewhere else.
Right, he's like, we have donkeys for that.
Yeah. So he uses the smoke to blow over a bowl of nuts and tells him to go find Ren and ask for a job, or he'll find one for him.
Specifically cleaning toilets.
And Carrion tells him he should get laid to improve his mood. Carrion says, tell him, Sunshine. And Fisher then commands Carrion not to call Cerys Sunshine. But then he says this, because she is moonlight, the mist that shrouds the mountains, the bite of electricity in the air before a storm, the smoke that rolls across a battlefield before the killing starts. You have no idea what she is, what she could be. You should call her Majesty. Regular men say I love you, and Kingfisher says this.
Majesty, my queen.
Yes.
It's so, because Sunshine's like happy, right? But that's not what Cerys is. Cerys is power.
No.
She's mystical power. Like, there's so many unknowns to her, and just the like sheer sublime of that is embodied by her. And you should call her Majesty. I'm like, the foreshadowing. I missed that the whole time. I'm like, oh totally. Yes, she's the queen. Of course, you should refer to her as that.
Yeah, but he's not a king per se. So you're like, what do you mean majesty? It doesn't click.
Right, he's a lord. She'd be a lady, if anything.
Right. So I'm like, where is he getting this majesty thing from? He just really just has the hots for her, I guess.
Right.
That's all I
And
was
then
piecing
Sarah's
together. I wasn't.
right. And Sarah's is like, okay, so do you need anything, Kingfisher, or can I get back to work here?
Yes.
And Fisher is like, okay, well, other smiths can refine silver. This isn't something like specifically an alchemist needs to do. I have something else for you to do. Let's go. And there are a lot of chapters that end like this, like, I have something for you to do. Let's go. And that's how this chapter ends.
Chapter 24 picks up, and it's called Lupo Perelia. And this is obviously significant of his wolves, which the emblem we've talked about before, and the meaning of wolf warriors and the meaning behind Lupo Perelia. So 563 shards of Danya's sword are still buried in stone, in wood, in all these different places inside of the tent where Ceres had reduced it to shards. And they're so fine that they're like all snapped into place. And one of the metal workers have tried to pull them out, but they keep fracturing like further because these pieces are so fine. Ren is there. He was beaten up from training. It comments that it's due to Fisher's bad mood. So we know there's a couple factors as to why Fisher could be pissed off. She ate again with Carrion. She's refusing.
They didn't share
tattoo.
food. She emphasizes we didn't share food. Own plates here. But yeah, there are a lot of things.
He's just grumpy. The cleansing
Sarah's
part about Madra, all the things.
Right, all the things. And Ceres offers that Danya could just like get a new sword. And then she gets the knowledge of it's a god sword. It's dormant. But this is like a birthright. It's more of like a religious symbol comparatively than just a sword. And it marks her as a member of Lupo Perelia. So this is one of the key points where understanding Lupo Perelia in the main book. Obviously, if you read the POV chapters, part 1 and part 2 of the Azure Gate, you would know what the Lupo Perelia is. But this is Ceres' first time really understanding what that means. And they are Kingfisher's wolves. There are usually 8 of them, and they fight as a team. However, that number dwindles depending on, those who are alive. And Kingfisher's blade is the only blade that still has some semblance of magic, but the rest of the god swords of the Lupo Perelia became dormant. Every member of the Lupo Perelia has a god sword based on this conversation. And Ceres is like, oh, great. So I just got here, got to camp, insulted a bunch of people, and shattered her god sword. Great, that's fine. And then Danya's like, outrage. Like, see, she doesn't even care. Are you going to let her talk to me like that? And they get into it because Ceres doesn't give 2 shits about like rank or anything. She just got pulled from her life and she's there. And Danya is like very, like, she's very insulted by her. Like, there's my sword. You're insulting me. You don't care. Danya is upset because Ceres is being sarcastic. She ruined her god sword, and Danya is pleading with Fisher, like, you're going to let her talk to me like that? And Fisher, and basically everyone else is on Ceres' side. Like, you tried to kill Kingfisher with a sword.
And from Danya's perspective, on the one hand, I get it. But on the other hand, like, you also tried to kill the main dude.
Exactly.
So
that was a
overreacting. Just
life has consequences.
Yes, actions have consequences. Yeah, we do.
But then this is how we know that the sword actually has Quicksilver. The god swords have Quicksilver, which is why Ceres was able to command it. She can't just command metallic elements or metal elements or anything. It's specifically Quicksilver.
Right.
And, then she's like, wait, I was able to do this in Sylvarin. Meaning there's Quicksilver in Sylvarin, which I thought was very interesting because, it was in the sand. It was literally, she could hear it buzzing and it was reacting to her. So Quicksilver was like imbued in basically everything.
Lots
so
of
it
stuff.
could create, powerful weapons. And then Madra like took all the metal away because she was afraid of people creating weapons that would kill her. But it's like, it was literally in the sand. I thought that was cool. Because when I reread that, I was like, wait, the sand, the quartz. It's literally everywhere.
Yeah, because everything has to have at least 5% Quicksilver for it to react. So it's literally all over Sylvarin, which is nuts. And what are the implications of that? What does that mean as far as what Ceres could create? Could she create another pool in Sylvarin?
If she could, like,
if
bring
she's back
all
there?
the Quicksilver together.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, they even established that alchemists, they can kind of manipulate the Quicksilver, but there's been no record of, like, anyone shattering a weapon or really just changing the components of an object to such degree. This establishes here like she's like the most powerful alchemist ever. The limit
Just
does not
thought
exist.
being like the only Quicksilver pool we have is in Madra's Palace. It would be ideal if they had other Quicksilver pools in Zilvar, and that made more sense. Could be more useful to them versus having to go through her castle every time. So just something that I thought about for Brimstone. I wonder if she would make another Quicksilver portal in Zilvar and somewhere else. Maybe to get to her brother. I don't know.
Right.
Thoughts. I have
And
to
then,
connect how that would all work.
right, because how much Quicksilver do you need to make a pool? Because some pools are like large, but some pools are small. So how much mass are we talking of
I don't
Quicksilver?
know. We have to think about that. So Laura states that it makes Ceres the most powerful alchemist ever recorded, which is what you led to. Most of the Fae that exist today were infants or just not born yet when alchemists went extinct. And Ceres can actually change the tides of war because of this. Ceres hasn't been able to make a relic yet, so the thought of how she's going to be able to do this just makes her head really swim. She doesn't understand how she's going to be able to do this, and it's very daunting. It's really weighing on her, so much so that like we haven't really talked about this, but like at the beginnings of certain chapters and in the depths of certain chapters, it breaks down different ingredients she's trying to test and then how it failed. And she's like kind of logging these things that are not working, and it's just not going well. So she's concerned about this. Ceres is just kind of stewing this. Of course, Danya is making smart jokes, but this is where Ren really lays it on the line and tells Danya, like, look, we do not have the time you think we have. We don't have the supplies you think we have. We have maybe a year. Ceres is like the only way that this works out. We have a year and Malcolm finally wins. That's what's going to happen here. This is not comforting to Ceres.
No.
Lorith tries to comfort her, saying like, you'll get used to like living with impending doom. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Fisher leaves to see Taylena, and of course, Ceres feels jealous over this again. And Ceres is like, God, where can I get a drink? Because it's just all too much. So now she's got impending doom over here. The guy that she's banging is going to see some other chick. She's just having a rough time. She can't make sense of it. She's like, I guess we're just hooking up, because she doesn't understand how Kingfisher feels at all. Doesn't understand the situation.
He doesn't
at
make
all
it easy for her.
Doesn't make it easy. No.
Yeah.
His bedroom talk is like great, but like she just is like, oh, he's just a man that says what he says in the bedroom, and none of it means anything outside of there. And
right, because I'm sure that's what she's experienced as well.
Yeah,
so it's not
exactly.
like
she's going based off her own experience. So they go to a tavern, which is nice.
I love this.
And the way I want it, this was a great, it's going to be a great scene in the show, but it was a great way to kind of get to know Lorith, but also the way I wanted to do a whiskey drink for this episode, the feeling was strong to do a whiskey drink, but I was like, I'm just going to do something for Cinco de Mayo, but I also really wanted to do a whiskey drink. So maybe for next week, I'll do a whiskey drink, but Ceres has 5 glasses of whiskey, and alas, her anxiety is gone. It's just amazing how that happens. So she's clearly, and she tells Lorith that Kingfisher's been lying to her, and he's like, yeah, he can't. He's an Oathbound Fae, and they can't lie. And so this is where she actually finds out the truth about the whole Oathbound Fae, because he said this before, but she just like, yeah, okay. She doesn't believe him. And he's like, no, like, legitimately, when we turn 21, we can kneel before the Finran stone and make a decision either to spill our blood on the stone and make a vow to tell the truth and like be honorable. You can't lie, cheat, or steal. And she tells Lorith of her oath to Fisher to make the relics, and then changes the subject. She wants to know now, all of a sudden, why these teeth are elongated and if they're used to drink blood. And poor Lorith,
and he's like, I need a drink.
Yeah. Then
like,
he needs a drink. Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, oh God. First he's like, I don't know if I'm the one to tell you this. And she just like looks at him.
Because she's just like,
yes, you are.
she thinks it's just like a question of anatomy. And he's like, no, this is like, a taboo thing. And he goes into like how it's really scandalous, and sometimes they do it for sexual desires. Both parties enter a stage of euphoria, but they can lose themselves in that and keep drinking and essentially drain them. So like there's not a lot of control with that. And then Laura is like, can you please drop the conversation now? Like, I don't want to talk about this again or talk about it with the person that asked you to do that or asked to do that. So this isn't a conversation for me. And then she's like, all right, got it. Moving on. And then we get his backstory, which I love. He was a traveling musician and he sucked. I'm like, oh. He's like, well, I was better suited for killing. Fisher found him lying in a ditch, nearly dead. He'd been attacked by 2 vampires. And Fisher was told by others that he should just kill Lorith because there's the risk of him becoming a vampire and then killing other people. But Fisher's like, no. And he took him to college. He had healers tend to him. And when they were like, no, you should just, end it here. Fisher made Lorith his brother by blood and gave him part of his own soul. And there's this whole oath process that his father passed down to him because when his father was near death, someone did that to him. So he made sure that Fisher understood how to do this ritual or this rite to make someone a brother to save them. But there's like caveats to that. So if Fisher dies before Lorith dies, then Fisher has to wait for Lorith to die to get his soul back. And he's like in this state of he can't interact with the real world. He can't go to rest. And he's just waiting, kind of like in limbo. And Lorith gives this story of one of the queens in Sorcy, the queen of the Lycian Fae. Her mother saved her life when she was a child. Her mother gave her part of her soul. And 180 years later, her mother was murdered. And then the daughter rose to power, and she's been in power for 3,000 years. And she is doing everything she can to stay alive. And I'm just like, wow, your mother gave you a second chance of life and you literally won't let her rest 3,000 years. But he's like, no, if Fisher dies before me, my next breath would mean that I will end it. We are going into the afterlife together. So that was beautiful.
Right.
You get like that dedication of Lorith and his backstory.
Who do you think saved his father?
I didn't even think about that. I don't know. Do you have any idea?
It says his friend had used it to save him.
Right.
So that would mean that Fisher's father is tied to someone else, another Fae, and vice versa, which gives me another thought that his dad's alive.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than for that.
Mm-hmm.
But even if his dad dies first, the other person can basically go on. But the fact that his dad's tied to this whole thing is interesting to me.
Right. I don't know, because we don't have a lot of backstory on his dad.
We don't have a lot of extra characters.
Right.
So it makes me wonder who his friend was that saved him. But maybe we'll find out in Brimstone or maybe a future novel after that. Because this is so brief, we might not see it in Brimstone. But maybe we will. Be curious to know about that. Chapter 25, Ballard.
I love Ballard. I cannot wait to see this in the show. I can't. It's going to look so good.
Yes, it is. There's so many all the chapters to this book are just visually stunning. I think that's why it's going to make such a great story on screen. It really is. So Kingfisher takes Saris back to the estate the next morning because she's hungover. It was shocking. After breakfast, she explores Kalish. It was clearly built for family and children. And on the map, you can see that it's definitely like an estate. It's just not nearly as big as these other castles and things that you see on the map. But it echoes with silence because, of course, there's only a few people there that tend to it. But Fisher's really the only prime person who lives there. And he was gone for 110 years. So it's quiet. Once night fell, she eats dinner in Fisher's bedroom, curls into his bed, and falls asleep. Fisher doesn't return the next morning either. He doesn't get there until like 3 p.m. Saris is wearing his shirt and all of her stuff is gone, and she declines all the dresses that Archer tries to bring her. Fisher is looking rough and tired because there were a pack of feeders moving along the border about an hour to the north. So there was a skirmish before he gets there. He leaves again to go see Taylena for a few hours. And this is where she's like, what the fuck?
No,
the way
she's like, tell her I said hi. I'm like, girl.
Yeah.
Oh, girl.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, when I get back, we're going to leave. So she like paces the room, she's a child, until he returns. And he looks refreshed and in a better mood when he gets back. And so then that makes her even more pissed off. He hands her a canvas bag with essentials and says to bring Onyx if it'll make her feel better. The way she's so unbelievably wrong about this man. But anyway, she steps into the shadow gate and comes out to a clearing surrounded by trees, bright lights twinkling everywhere. And there's soft music and the smell of meat and sugar. So Onyx just like dips. He's just like toodles and like leaves,
food,
runs off.
Things.
Yeah, he's like, bye, see you. It feels safe enough to leave. And hence the name of the chapter, they're in Ballard. And it's a small village. Tonight is one of their feast days, and they're celebrating the longest night of the year. And Ballard's just the best. It's such a good chapter, and it's such an exciting part of the story.
And the way Saris is like, these people are happy. what are we doing here? What are you going to do to him? He's like, they have something that we need. And once we get it, we'll leave. And she's like, what are you going to do to get it? And he's just like, relax. Relax. Like, I'm not going to do anything. This is a peaceful city. And so we have that, she doesn't really see his gentleness. Like, even though she sees it, she's in disbelief of how gentle he is and how loved he is because she sees asshole Fisher all the time. And then,
Well, and she's also kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop just based on her own experience of the world.
right. Mm-hmm.
She's chronically always thinking somebody's up to something, that they can't possibly be truly good-natured. There has to be something that they want above and beyond, and that they're willing to do that in exchange versus genuinely wanting to be like nice just to be nice. But there's no ulterior motive to that.
Right. The residents of Ballard are a mix of high fae and lesser fae. So they're very diverse in what we're seeing. There's, of course, the standard high fae that we see. Then there's tiny pixies, dryads with silver hair who venture from the shadows. Like, they come in and out of the shadows. Brownies, satyrs, and nymphs. There are food stalls, games, musicians gathered by a giant roaring fire. There are gardens everywhere, which she's blown away by. Because, remember, the third is all desert. So she's heard of what a garden is, but she's never seen one, like actual fresh vegetables growing from the ground. Like, blew her mind. And she says that she always wanted a place like this for Hayden, somewhere peaceful and safe that he could thrive. And then Fisher was like, well, wherever Carrion sent him, he's probably thriving. She's like, I mean, he didn't have the best childhood, so he's like a feral animal at this point. And he's addicted to gambling, so he's kind of a lost cause now. But when he was a child, she wanted something like this for him so he can be like carefree and actually, be a contributing member of society. Fisher admits he'll help Sarah with the relics then, and decides if he helps, they actually might have a chance of getting it done. She's like, wow, really? You're going to help me after all this time? Yay. They're sitting there observing the crowd, and there are children dancing by the fire, and there are a lot of like younger preteen looking fae too, and children age twice as fast as humans because there are a lot of predators lurking around. And then they're fully grown by 21 or 22, which is where the aging process slows down drastically. And Saris is like, what do you mean predators? 4 different banshees feed from the souls of the young. Wraiths, mermaids, these aren't Ariel Little Mermaids. These are like soul-sucking mermaids. Den-dwelling creatures. We don't even get a description. They're like, whatever is in a den, they will just eat them. The plant life is also dangerous. There are the poisonous thorns and the carnivorous flowers. And then there's Malcolm and all of his hatred. So it's really
the
important.
horde that he's been actively trying to build for how long?
Mm-hmm, right. So it's really important for children to grow up as fast as possible so they can be strong. And, it's a defense mechanism ultimately. And Saris is like, well, there's this group of girls who keep like staring because they're dancing. They keep looking at Kingfisher and they're giggling. And she says that one's looking to be Lady of Kalish. And he's like, I'm not a lord. A lord is charged with watching over, protecting, defending, and creating a safe place for his people. But his people have been turned to vampires and been forced to eat their children. So I'm like, well, shit.
Well, that was dark.
Yeah, I was like, that took a turn. And because she's like trying to make something lighthearted, and like all of a sudden, like, okay, no happiness here.
But this talks into how Kingfisher blames himself, and he has so much guilt over being gone for 110 years, even though it wasn't really his decision to be gone, right? But he said he was gone for 110 years and he failed them. So he doesn't deserve to, in his mind, be a lord. Sarah sees the grief, though, that he's wearing, and there's a facade that she can see that he has about this. And Fisher asks Saris finally at this point, why haven't you said anything about the other night? Like, you never brought it up. She's like, well, I figured it was a one-time thing. He doesn't like her, but he's attracted to her. Sometimes these things happen and, you get it out of your system, and it's kind of a one and done situation. So that's kind of what she says. And he's like, yeah, I don't hate you. So I don't know why you think that. And she's like, okay, mixed signals, mister. We're going to call him Mr. Mixed Signals because at this point, that's basically what's been going on. He gets interrupted while he's talking to her by Wendy, who's this elderly woman, Faye. And she said she knew Kingfisher would eventually finally come back. And she'd been making biscuits for him, these biscuits, like, which are cookies, every year, and he hasn't shown up to eat them. And so she calls him a cheeky shit for this.
She's so funny.
Fisher, I know, I love her. Fisher apologizes, and she's like, yeah, well, you owe me money for sugar, okay? And
Keep your
Fisher
apology.
laughs, and yeah, she's like, oh, he's like, I'm working on opening up some of these trade lines. Like, it's going to happen. And this is part of the Quicksilver path as well. So it's kind of a reminder to that, right? So the Quicksilver isn't just to save all of them for what's going on, it's also to open up trade. This helps establish trade routes. There's a lot of benefits to what the Quicksilver can do, right? So she then grabs Fisher by the waist and guides him to a table inside with 2 large bowls of beef stew and demands that Ceres be introduced. And she's like, Zilvarin girl, and grabs her by the shoulders, and I felt it. I knew that the moment the gate opened, I felt you pass through it. So we know she has some kind of magic that's fairly strong here.
Well,
Wendy.
she says there was a buzzing in the air that day. And then Kingfisher, just a chapter ago, when he was talking to Carrion, said that she's the electricity in the air before a storm. So again, there's like this electrical component in her.
Ooh, I didn't put that
feeling.
together.
Yeah. And so I think that ties into like what power or what magic she could have because she hasn't reached her full potential. And
Doesn't
like, who
manifest
knows
yet.
now? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the second time. And I'm like, okay.
Well, and she's Fae now, so we
electricity.
know that she's definitely going to have something. So maybe she
Something.
commands the sky.
Ooh,
Yeah, maybe we
okay.
have something here. I don't know. It seems likely that there's some element of that here. Maybe she has what Violet's mother had,
The storms.
where she can command the sky, the storms. Who knows? Maybe. But then Wendy sniffs her and is like, oh, you guys are more than friends. And it's like, oh, God, not this again. So horrifying.
And the Fisher's like,
And
well, she's a
then-
temporary friend. Don't worry.
Yeah.
She's going back
She's
to
going
Zilvarin
back to
soon.
Zilvarin because he knows that she's going to like say something to that effect. And he's like, I'm just going to jump the gun and say it for her because she's clearly mortified. So Fisher changes the subject to the stew and they go off and eat, right? So the plates get filled again and again. They have all these beers. They're hanging out. They're talking. They have this peaceful moment together. Given that they're in a war situation, they can finally do that here in this little town, which is pretty nice. So Ceres is Fisher, of course, and does impressions of him for having multiple refills of beer. A pixie tries to steal the cookie off of Ceres's plate, so she breaks the cookie up for the pixie to give it to her, and then the pixie flips her off. And,
It's like, how dare you? I could have carried it off myself.
Yeah, rude. And so we see Pixars are not super friendly in this
No,
book.
they're not.
Fisher watches her, and they're having this moment together, which is nice. And she can see the tension and in his shoulders, and the silver of his eye is like swirling. And then she starts to hear the voice Anaroth more, and she kind of passes out. And he's like, yeah, what's going on? And she's like, oh no, I just had like a dizzy spell. And he's like, yeah, I know you heard something. What did you say?
Well, the voices
And so
tell her,
Fisher's-
like, he knows that you heard something. And she's like, oh.
So Fisher just
yuck.
like leaves. They get up, and Onyx leaves too, and they're following this line of trees. He stops onto a path, and he's like, "Why'd you say Anaroth more?" And Sarah says she doesn't know. It just like came out of nowhere. And he's like, "Can you just like not say that?" Anaroth more, which we now know, goes back to his imprisonment and ties directly to the people that he is responsible for dooming. Not intentionally, but because of what happened between the game, basically, that was played between those two brothers. So he's like, yeah, could you just not say that? That'd be great.
And Ceres is surprised because it's fear. It's not like annoyance, which she's seen in anger. It's like actual fear of those words. And, she asks what they are, but he's like, I can't tell you, which, is because it's tied to Malcolm. And then he grabbed her hand and like tugged her along into the forest. They eventually come to a cobblestone square with a fountain in it. There's a woman in the fountain that is holding an urn, and from the urn is pouring water. And she realizes that it's Adina of the Seven Towers, which is Kingfisher's mother. And she was important to the people of Ballard. And she remembers that he said that he used to come here as like a child a couple of times. So which obviously he's come here more if Wendy is like, I've been making cookies for you every year. So he visited a lot more than just when he was a child. He goes to a door, he unlocks it, and she's like, oh, wait, this is his place. Like, of course, he like lives here. This is his apartment. And the apartment had like all the furniture had like dust coverings on it. And he drew the curtains, and there are 2 rooms. And she realizes very quickly, like, oh, we are not sleeping together. Like, we're going to have our 2 separate areas. And he's just like, good night, Loosha. And then like leaves because it's just that like just changed something in his mind. Yeah. And he just needed some space.
Yeah, he's not right from it. Yeah, but also for her, that
Lots of
basic
questions for
rejection.
her.
Yeah,
Right.
she doesn't understand the Taylena thing. She doesn't understand why did he bring her there. Like, yeah, she's having a hard time with this. But yeah, let's do our mystery Q&A. These questions have not been shared with us to each other prior to asking. So now the question I was going to ask you at the beginning of this episode, let's ask you now. You can only celebrate one holiday in perpetuity each year that it comes up and never the other two again. We've got Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, or Cinco de Mayo.
So process of elimination. We don't really do much for St. Patrick's Day, which my family lineage is Irish too. So we probably should, but we don't. I could go without that. Valentine's Day.
We know how you feel
I
about
don't,
Valentine's Day.
right. I don't care for Valentine's Day, but I do a lot because of my daughter. And I want her to realize how she should be, celebrated. So I do a lot for that. But, Cinco de Mayo is fun because you throw a party every year and we get to hang out.
Yes.
So I love Cinco
This
de
is
Mayo
true.
and
I am partial to
margaritas
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, and all the food. I was just talking to my husband about that. I'm like, ooh, they're going to cater and it's going to be so good. I'm so excited.
Yes.
So I guess by
Yes.
default, it would probably be Cinco de Mayo. As long as you keep throwing the parties. That's my caveat.
Okay. Yes. Well, mine's a toss-up. That's a tough one for me because my lineage is also St. Patrick's Day. And now that you made me think about it with Valentine's Day, because immediately I was going to say Cinco de Mayo, like without a pause. It was going to be my answer because it's like non-committal. There's no way you're disappointing anyone. You get to have fun at a party. It's a good time. Yeah, I'm still going to go with that. I'm going to say Cinco. But the Valentine's Day, like you have your anniversary or you have other days that you can do something like that for.
Right.
So yeah, Cinco.
Fair.
Cinco.
Okay.
Hands down.
All right.
Although I do love a good St. Patty's Day party. I do enjoy. And we try to support we have a local Irish pub that we try to support that does the whole deal that they do the corned beef and cabbage and all that. So we get it every year. And we've made that an annual tradition. And
that's fun.
That has always been like a staple tradition that we've done for years and years that we'll still do. But it's Cinco de Mayo, I think we've made as like our own family type of thing. So yeah, because we have our annual party. So I guess we'd keep that going.
Yeah.
All right. What's your question?
Okay. What is a trend that you can't get behind? Like a really popular trend that you see either on Instagram or you just see around that you just cannot get behind?
Okay. I hesitate to say this. I guess one of the trends that I can't get behind, are we talking clothes or are we talking other stuff?
It can be anything.
Anything we want.
Literally anything. Yep.
Okay. I guess one of the trends that I have a hard time getting behind, and it's not for any other reason than I just don't know how, is the sourdough trend.
I was literally thinking that. The sourdough and the focaccia bread trend.
Focaccia?
Yeah. Focaccia. I was like,
I don't know how to do it. And Valerie, who's been on our show, has a starter and sent us a guide. And I just haven't had the time to go do it. And it's mostly the shame of not knowing how. I have literally no idea how to do this. And I know that there's like a lot to this.
Yes.
Like you have to grow it. There's like a whole, it's overwhelming to me. I get a little bit overwhelmed by the sourdough process.
I'm impatient.
That's the one in our generation right now. That's like a massive trend is like the sourdough trend. And go ahead.
No, I agree. I'm impatient and it takes multiple days. I'm like, I can't. If I want to make bread, I'm going to make bread that day. But no, you have to start it. You have to plan ahead and you have to, do all these things and then dump it out and then restart and then, leave it for 3 days and throw some salt at it. I don't even know. And I see it everywhere. And the focaccia bread and making it into a whole, which I love focaccia. When we went to Italy, like I could just eat it all the time. And they have sweet and savory and let's just throw a bunch of crap on it and make it into like a whole meal, and which is great. But I'm like, I just can't. And I love baking. That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's the thing is like, I'm like, why don't I love this trend? Like what is with me? Because I do love to bake. And I'm like, why am I not into the sourdough? And it's because I don't have the patience. And you want to know what else? Okay, so book talk thing that's like people are obsessed with are these miniature books and like making miniature bookshelves. And girl, I don't have the patience for that. I don't have the time. I don't have the patience. I'm not cricketing any of that. I don't even cricket my own shirts or anything like that. Like I would never ever have the patience. Which I'll be honest, I love the mini books. They're adorable. I think they're so cool. And same with sourdough bread. I will eat a sourdough bread sandwich. I will eat sourdough. I love sourdough bread. It's not even that. I just don't have the patience to do the thing. I just don't. I can't do the thing.
I agree.
I have a tough time.
That's why also like I don't have a green thumb. I'm really bad with plants. And it's the patience and understanding each plant is unique.
I
needs
want to
different
believe that
things.
I have that's the problem. I
You have
water them all on
thriving
the same day of the
plants
week.
that are mostly thriving.
You don't see the rotation of dead ones.
I have, in my house right now, I have 2. We have a tomato garden outside. I don't touch it. My husband touches it. He's the one that waters all of that shit, and I will be happy. I'll make some salsa, tomato sauce, whatever with those tomatoes. But if I was in charge of it, those things would be dead. I don't have the patience. I just don't. So,
I guess that makes us a good partnership somehow. I don't know.
all right. So before we wrap up, let's talk about what's coming up next in Book Club After Dark.
All right. So next week, we're going to dive into chapters 26 through 30 of Quicksilver by Callie Hart. So hit that subscribe button to hear more of our exciting book talk. We're looking forward to dissecting this novel with you.
And don't forget, we want to hear from you. If you have thoughts on Quicksilver, suggestions for future reads, drop a comment below or message us on one of our social media platforms at Book Club After Dark Pod. Show us your fan art, theories, or anything bookish you'd like to share.
Yep. You can also visit our website, Book Club After Dark Co. Stay up to date on our cozy content and check out our merch.
That's all for tonight. Sleep tight, night owls. Until next time, happy reading.